Mafia boss's mother refused to speak, until the black caretaker translated her warning. Why had his mother remained silent, and what warning was she desperately trying to communicate? How could the caretaker understand what everyone else had missed? Hello, everyone, and welcome to 7Tev Stories, where quiet moments can uncover truths powerful enough to change everything. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another emotional story. Thank you for every view, thoughtful comment, and moment you spend watching with us. Your continued support allows this community to grow stronger each day. Tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching from and what time it is there right now. We always enjoy hearing from our viewers across different countries and cities. Now, settle in, stay attentive, and let us step into the opening scene of today's remarkable story. He thought his mother had forgotten how to speak, but that night, in a room full of powerful men, she found one woman who knew how to listen. Maya Bennett stood behind Eleanor Romano's wheelchair with both hands resting lightly on the polished handles, trying to make herself invisible beneath the golden chandeliers of the Romano dining room. The table stretched nearly 20 feet across the marble floor, dressed in white linen, silver chargers, crystal glasses, and a centerpiece of deep red roses that looked too perfect to be real. At the head of that table sat Vincent Romano, the most feared man in Chicago, a man with a white dress shirt, dark tailored jacket, and the kind of silence that made other men lower their voices before speaking. To his right sat Caleb Romano, smiling like a loyal cousin while his fingers hovered near a leather folder filled with papers. Beside him, Dr. Marcus Hale adjusted his cuff links and watched Eleanor with the calm expression of a man who had already decided she no longer mattered. Eleanor Romano had not spoken in 11 months. Not after the stroke. Not after the specialists. Not after Vincent had spent more money than most hospitals saw in a year trying to bring back the voice that once ruled the Romano family. With a single sentence. Now people spoke around her, over her, and sometimes about her while she sat only inches away, wrapped in a pale blue shawl, her silver hair pinned neatly at the back of her head. They called it kindness. Maya knew better. She had seen Eleanor's eyes sharpen whenever Caleb entered a room. She had seen her fingers tap against the armrest in patterns too steady to be meaningless. She had seen the old woman blink once for no, twice for yes, and 3 times when fear closed around her like a locked door. But no one had asked Maya what she saw. In this house, she was only the caretaker, the black woman in soft-soled shoes who changed blankets, measured tea, and kept quiet. Caleb lifted his glass with a warm smile that never reached his eyes. To family, he said, and to making difficult decisions before it is too late. Vincent did not smile. His gaze remained on the documents near his plate, the ones Caleb had spent all evening calling a simple legal precaution. Dr. Hale leaned forward and softened his voice. Your mother would want stability, Vincent. In her condition, hesitation only creates confusion. Maya felt Eleanor's body go rigid beneath the shawl. One thin hand moved, slow at first, then faster, searching blindly until it found Maya's wrist. Her fingers closed with surprising strength. Maya bent slightly, thinking the older woman needed water. But Eleanor did not reach for the glass. She pressed her trembling fingertip into Maya's skin, shaping one letter, then another, then another. Maya's breath caught. Don't drink it. Across the table, Vincent Romano lifted the crystal glass toward his lips, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Maya did not move at first. Her eyes locked on the glass in Vincent Romano's hand, watching the red wine catch the chandelier light like a dark warning. Around the table, the men kept smiling, kept breathing, kept pretending this was only another elegant family dinner inside a mansion where everything dangerous was hidden behind polished silver and soft music. But Eleanor's fingers tightened around Maya's wrist again, and the message carved into her skin felt louder than any scream. Do not drink it. Vincent. Raised the glass another inch. Caleb leaned back in his chair, relaxed, almost pleased. Dr. Marcus Hale lowered his gaze to his plate as though he already knew how the next few seconds were supposed to unfold. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. She was not supposed to speak at this table. She was not supposed to interrupt a Romano dinner. She was not even supposed to look directly at Vincent unless he asked her a question. The house rules had been explained to her on her first morning by a woman in a gray uniform who smelled like starch and fear. Stay quiet. Stay useful. Stay invisible. But Eleanor Romano was not invisible to her. The older woman's eyes were wide now, glassy with panic, but focused with a sharpness no doctor had ever mentioned. This was not confusion. This was not the empty fear of a woman lost inside her own mind. This was a mother watching her son step toward danger while every person around him ignored the only voice trying to save him. Maya swallowed hard. In the reflection of the wineglass, she saw herself standing behind Eleanor's chair, a black caretaker in a simple navy uniform, surrounded by men who could buy buildings, silence rumors, and erase mistakes with one phone call. She thought of her younger brother, Jordan, lying in a rehabilitation room years earlier, unable to speak after the accident, blinking messages through tears while nurses called it random movement. She remembered the first time she understood him. 1 blink. 2 blinks. A twitch of the finger. A world hidden inside silence. People often stopped listening when words disappeared. Maya had learned that silence could still carry truth. Vincent's glass touched the edge of his mouth. Eleanor's hand trembled violently against Maya's wrist. Something inside Maya broke through fear. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. "Mr. Romano," she said. The room stopped. Forks paused above plates. A bodyguard near the wall shifted his weight. Caleb's smile thinned. Vincent lowered the glass slowly, not drinking, his dark eyes turning toward her with the cold patience of a man unused to being interrupted. Maya felt every stare land on her skin. Dr. Hale gave a small, practiced laugh. "Miss Bennet, this is not the time." But Maya did not look at him. She looked only at Vincent, because Eleanor had chosen her wrist, her hand, her understanding. Vincent's voice came low across the table. "You have something to say." It was not a question. Maya's throat tightened, but her hand remained over Eleanor's. "Yes, sir," she said. "Your mother is trying to warn you." For one long second, nobody spoke. The chandelier lights hummed softly above the white linen table, and the only sound in the room was the faint tremor of Eleanor Romano's breathing. Vincent did not look at Caleb. He did not look at Dr. Hale. He looked at Maya as if the entire mansion had narrowed down to her face and the impossible sentence she had just dared to say. "Your mother is trying to warn you." Caleb broke the silence first with a gentle laugh, the kind meant to make a cruel thing sound reasonable. "Vincent, come on. She is nervous. New staff sometimes get overwhelmed in homes like this." Maya kept her hand on Eleanor's, feeling the older woman's pulse race beneath paper-thin skin. Dr. Hale folded his napkin with careful patience. "Miss Bennet has been with us only 3 weeks, he said. "She is not trained to interpret neurological behavior. Mrs. Romano's movements are involuntary. That is all." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, but her gaze stayed fixed on Vincent. Maya saw the frustration there, the trapped intelligence, the desperate dignity of a woman everyone had mistaken for empty silence. Vincent slowly set his glass on the table. The soft click of crystal against wood made Caleb stop smiling for half a breath. 3 weeks earlier, Maya Bennet had walked through the iron gates of the Romano estate with a folder of references in one hand and a prayer folded quietly inside her heart. The mansion stood on 5 acres outside Chicago, all limestone walls, black-framed windows, and perfectly trimmed hedges that looked untouched by ordinary life. She had worked in private homes before, but nothing like this. The front doors alone were taller than the apartment building where she had grown up on the south side. A house manager named Mrs. Delaney met her in the foyer, gave her a navy uniform, and explained the rules without wasting warmth. Do not enter Mr. Romano's office. Do not speak to guests unless spoken to. Do not ask questions about the men who arrive after dark. And most importantly, do not encourage Mrs. Romano. Maya had paused at that. Encourage her how? Mrs. Delaney's expression tightened. She does not speak. She has not spoken since the stroke. Sometimes she points, taps, stares. The doctors say it means nothing. It is kinder not to pretend otherwise. Maya had nodded because she needed the job. Jordan's therapy cost more each month than her rent, and insurance had a way of calling miracles unnecessary when they became expensive. But when Maya first entered Eleanor's room, she saw something the others had stopped looking for. The older woman sat near a tall window overlooking the garden, her silver hair brushed smooth, her shoulders straight despite the wheelchair, her eyes following every movement with sharp attention. When Maya introduced herself, Eleanor blinked twice. Not randomly. Not weakly. Twice, with purpose. Maya felt a chill move through her. Hello to you too, she had whispered. Eleanor's fingers tapped once against the armrest, then rested still. From that moment, Maya understood one thing clearly. This woman had not disappeared. The house had simply stopped searching for her. During Maya's first week, she learned that the Romano mansion had a strange way of grieving the living. Eleanor Romano was not treated like a mother, a widow, or the woman who had once held the family together with a calm voice and a straight back. She was treated like a fragile object placed in the corner of an expensive room, polished, protected, and quietly ignored. Every morning, staff moved around her with practiced softness, opening curtains, changing flowers, adjusting pillows, speaking in the high, careful tone people used when they had already decided someone could not understand them. Good morning, Mrs. Romano. Beautiful weather today. Your son is very busy. You rest now. Then they would turn away before her eyes could answer. Maya noticed everything. She noticed Eleanor's jaw tighten when people spoke to her like a child. She noticed the way her fingers pressed into the blanket whenever Caleb entered smiling with a cup of tea he insisted was good for her nerves. She noticed how Dr. Marcus Hale checked charts more often than he checked the woman sitting right in front of him. He visited every afternoon at 4 o'clock, wearing polished shoes and a watch that gleamed beneath his white cuff. His voice was always smooth, always certain. No meaningful progress, he would tell Vincent in the hallway, never bothering to close the bedroom door. Cognitive response remains limited. We must manage expectations. Eleanor would sit by the window and hear every word. Maya would watch her eyes lower, not in confusion, but in humiliation. Vincent came when he could, usually late, after the house had gone quiet and the men in dark suits had stopped crossing the foyer. He never stayed long, but Maya could tell he loved his mother in the only language a man like him seemed to understand: control. He brought specialists from New York, equipment from California, private nurses from Boston, and medications with labels Maya could barely pronounce. He stood beside Eleanor's chair with his hands folded in front of him, asking Dr. Hale if there was anything else money could do. And every time, Dr. Hale gave the same answer. We are doing everything possible. Be patient. She may never return to who she was. Vincent would nod, but something in his face always cracked for a second before the stone came back. Once, after midnight, Maya saw him kneel beside Eleanor and rest his forehead against her hand. He did not know Maya was in the doorway with fresh towels. He whispered, I need you, Ma. I am trying, but I do not know what to do without you. Eleanor's fingers moved then, brushing weakly against his hair, but Vincent had already stood up. He missed it. That was the tragedy of the house. Everyone wanted Eleanor to come back in the way they remembered, with full sentences, clear commands, and the sharp Roman dignity that could stop an argument across a crowded room. No one wanted to meet her where she was now. No one except Maya. So Maya began quietly, carefully. 1 blink for yes. 2 taps for no. 3 taps for pain. A finger drawn across the blanket for wait. At first, Eleanor tested her with simple things. Window. Water. Cold. Tired. Then one afternoon, when Caleb's footsteps faded down the hall and Dr. Hale's medication tray sat untouched on the side table, Eleanor looked straight at Maya and tapped 4 times, slow and deliberate. Maya leaned closer. The older woman's hand trembled, but her eyes were fierce. She tapped again. Not random. Not empty. A warning was trying to become a sentence. Maya did not answer the 4 taps immediately. She had learned the hard way that silence deserved patience, not panic. Years earlier, in a rehabilitation center on the west side of Chicago, her brother Jordan had stared at her from a hospital bed while everyone else spoke around him like he had become furniture. The doctors used long words. The nurses adjusted machines. Relatives cried in the hallway. But Jordan kept blinking at Maya with a rhythm that made her chest ache. At first, she missed it. Everyone missed it. Then one night, while rain tapped against the window, she realized he was spelling with his eyes, not randomly moving them. He was still there. Trapped, tired, angry, but still there. From that day on, Maya taught herself every language silence could borrow. Eye movement. Finger tapping. Lip reading. Breath patterns. Pain scales. Emergency response cards. She learned that a person could lose speech and still keep a whole universe burning behind their eyes. So when Eleanor Romano tapped 4 times, Maya did not dismiss it as weakness. She pulled the chair closer, lowered her voice, and placed her own hand gently on the blanket. For means what, Mrs. Romano? Eleanor's eyes moved toward the medication tray. Maya followed her gaze. A small blue bottle sat beside the water glass, its label neat, its cap sealed, its presence ordinary enough to be ignored. Maya picked it up carefully. The printed name matched the chart hanging on the clipboard, but something about the label seemed too fresh, too clean, as if it had been placed there for someone to notice only the parts that looked official. Eleanor tapped again. 4 times. Then she blinked once. Hard. Yes. Maya set the bottle down exactly where it had been. Her heart began to beat faster, but her face stayed calm. In homes like this, fear could be seen as guilt, and concern could be punished as curiosity. The bedroom door opened before she could ask another question. Caleb Romano stepped inside carrying his usual soft smile, the one he wore like a silk tie. He looked at Maya, then at the tray, then at Eleanor. Everything all right in here? He asked. Maya stood, smoothing her uniform. Yes, sir. Mrs. Romano wanted her water moved closer. Caleb's eyes narrowed just enough to remind her that rich men often heard more than they admitted. Careful, Miss Bennet. My aunt can make people imagine things. It is one of the sadder parts of her condition. Eleanor's fingers curled against the blanket. Maya saw it. Caleb saw Maya see it. The room grew colder without the temperature changing. He crossed to the window, adjusted a curtain that did not need adjusting, then turned back with a pleasant voice. Vincent has a lot on his mind. The last thing he needs is a caretaker filling this house with false hope. Maya kept her eyes low. I understand. Good, Caleb said. Because in this family, misunderstanding can become very expensive. After he left, the door clicked shut with a sound too soft to be innocent. Maya waited 10 full seconds before breathing again. Eleanor's eyes were wet, but steady. Slowly, painfully, the older woman lifted one finger and traced a shape against the blanket. Not letters yet. Not a full word. Just a line, a curve, and a pause. Maya watched closely. Again, she whispered. Eleanor did it again. This time Maya understood the first letter. C, then another. A, then L. Maya's stomach tightened. Caleb. Maya did not say Caleb's name out loud. She felt it settle in the room like dust after a door slams, invisible but everywhere. Eleanor's finger trembled against the blanket, exhausted from the effort of forming 3 letters, but her eyes stayed fierce, begging Maya to understand the rest. Maya leaned closer, keeping her voice lower than the air conditioner humming behind the wall. Are you saying Caleb changed your medicine? Eleanor blinked once. Yes. Maya's stomach turned cold. She glanced toward the blue bottle on the tray, then toward the closed door, half expecting Caleb to be standing there with that polite smile. He was not, but the house had ears. Staff moved through hallways. Cameras hid in ceiling corners. Men in dark suits appeared and disappeared without sound. In the Romano mansion, even kindness had to move carefully. Maya reached for the notepad she kept in her uniform pocket and wrote nothing obvious. Blue bottle. 4 taps. Caleb. She folded the page twice and slipped it beneath the lining of her shoe, because purses could be searched and drawers could be opened, but no one looked under the foot of a woman they considered beneath them. That evening, she tried to reach Vincent. She waited outside his office for 11 minutes while voices moved behind the walnut door, low and tense. When the door finally opened, 3 men stepped out first, each one avoiding her eyes. Vincent came last, his tie loosened, his expression carved from exhaustion and control. Maya stepped forward. Mr. Romano, I need to speak with you about your mother. Vincent stopped. For a second, she saw something human flicker in him. Then Caleb appeared behind him, smooth as a shadow. About Eleanor? He asked. Maya's mouth dried. Vincent looked from her to Caleb, then back again. Make an appointment with Dr. Hale, he said. If it is medical, he handles it. Maya knew then how deep the problem ran. Not because Vincent did not care, but because he had placed his trust in the wrong gatekeepers. Caleb smiled gently, placing one hand on Vincent's shoulder. Miss Bennet worries too much. She is compassionate. That is good in a caretaker, but dangerous when it becomes imagination. Vincent's jaw tightened. Maya lowered her eyes, not in surrender, but to hide the anger rising behind them. Yes, sir, she whispered. She turned away before they could see her hands shaking. The next morning, Eleanor refused breakfast. Mrs. Delaney called it stubbornness. Dr. Hale called it decline. Caleb called it heartbreaking. Maya called it communication. She noticed the tray had changed. The blue bottle was gone, replaced by a white one with a different label and the same sharp chemical smell. Eleanor stared at it until Maya understood. Something was being hidden, then replaced, then explained away with professional words. Maya waited until the room emptied, then used her phone to photograph the label, the dosage, and the chart hanging near the bed. Her hands moved fast, but her breathing stayed even. She sent nothing. Not yet. In a house like this, truth without proof was only noise. By sunset, the mansion shifted into preparation. Silver was polished. Wine was selected. The long dining room was opened for the first time in weeks. Mrs. Delaney whispered that Caleb had arranged a family dinner, something about legal papers Vincent needed to sign for Eleanor's care. Maya looked toward the staircase where Eleanor sat waiting in her wheelchair, pale but alert. The older woman's fingers moved against the armrest. 3 taps. Pain. 2 taps. No. Then one slow line across the wood. Wait. Maya knelt beside her. I am listening, she whispered. Eleanor closed her eyes, and one tear slipped down her cheek. For the first time since Maya had entered that mansion, the warning had a deadline. By 6 o'clock, the Romano mansion no longer felt like a home. It felt like a stage built for a decision someone else had already made. Staff moved through the dining room with silver trays and quiet faces, placing crystal glasses exactly 2 inches above folded napkins, setting heavy forks beside plates rimmed in gold, checking candles that burned without smoke. Outside the tall windows, the Chicago sky had turned the color of steel, and the garden lights glowed along the path like small watchful eyes. Maya pushed Eleanor's wheelchair slowly down the hallway, careful not to let the wheels catch on the edge of the antique runner. The older woman sat very still beneath her pale blue shawl, but Maya could feel the tension in her shoulders through the handles of the chair. Every few feet, Eleanor's fingers tapped against the armrest. Not random. Never random. 1 tap. Wait. 2 taps. No. Then a pause so long Maya wondered if the strength had left her. At the entrance to the dining room, Eleanor lifted 1 finger and drew a small circle against the wood. Maya leaned closer as if adjusting the shawl. The wine? She whispered. Eleanor blinked once. Yes. Maya's eyes moved across the room. Caleb stood near the fireplace with Dr. Hale, both of them speaking softly while the house manager supervised the final setting. On the sideboard sat 3 bottles of red wine, each with a cream-colored label, each polished until the glass reflected the candles. Nothing looked unusual. That was what frightened Maya most. In poor neighborhoods, danger often announced itself with noise. In rich houses, it wore clean labels, spoke in calm voices, and arrived on silver trays. Vincent entered a few minutes later, and the room changed before anyone said his name. Conversations dropped half a level. Shoulders straightened. Even Caleb adjusted his smile. Vincent had changed into a black suit and white shirt, no tie, his face unreadable but tired around the eyes. He went first to Eleanor, as he always did, touching her shoulder with careful fingers. "You look beautiful tonight, Ma," he said. Eleanor stared up at him with so much feeling that Maya had to look away. She tried to move her hand, tried to reach him, but the motion was small, trapped beneath the shawl. Vincent missed it again. Caleb stepped forward with the leather folder in his hand. "This will not take long," he said warmly. "Just a few signatures to make sure her care continues without delays." Dr. Hale nodded. "It is a responsible step." Maya stood behind Eleanor, hearing every polished word like a door being locked. She thought of the photographs on her phone, the notes hidden in her shoe, the blue bottle that had disappeared, the white bottle that had taken its place. Proof, but not enough. Not yet. If she spoke too soon, Caleb would call her unstable. Dr. Hale would call her confused. Vincent would hear concern but not certainty. Then Eleanor's hand slipped from beneath the shawl and found Maya's fingers. Slowly, with painful effort, she traced another message against Maya's palm. Not letters this time. Numbers. 2. 7. 4. Maya frowned, then looked toward the table. 7 place settings. 4 candles. 2 wineglasses already filled. Her eyes stopped at Vincent's seat. His glass was fuller than the others, the red surface perfectly still. Across the room, Caleb watched her notice it. For the first time, his smile disappeared. Caleb recovered his smile so quickly that anyone else might have missed the moment it slipped. Maya did not. She had spent years reading the smallest movements in people who could not afford to speak plainly, and there it was in his face, a flash of irritation, then calculation, then that smooth family warmth returning like a curtain falling back into place. "Miss Bennet," he said, his voice gentle enough for the room but sharp enough for her alone, "why do you look so concerned?" Maya felt Eleanor's fingers tighten around hers. Vincent turned slightly, his gaze moving from Caleb to Maya. The entire dining room paused around that simple question. A server stood frozen near the sideboard with a silver pitcher. Dr. Hale cleared his throat, and even Mrs. Delaney stopped adjusting the candles. Maya lowered her eyes, pretending obedience while her mind raced. If she accused Caleb now, he would laugh. If she mentioned the glass, Dr. Hale would say she was imagining patterns. If she showed the photographs, they would ask why a caretaker had been taking pictures of private medical information. Truth needed timing, and timing was the only weapon Maya had. "I was checking Mrs. Romano's comfort, sir," she said quietly. Caleb stepped closer. "How thoughtful. But you have been doing that all evening. Perhaps you should let the family handle family matters now." Eleanor's hand moved again, weak but urgent. Maya felt the old woman trace one more word into her palm. "Stay." The word went through Maya like a command from someone who had been ignored for too long. Vincent pulled out his chair but did not sit. "Let her stay," he said. Caleb's expression remained pleasant, but the air around him changed. "Of course. If that makes Mother comfortable." He placed the leather folder beside Vincent's plate and opened it with careful hands. The pages inside were thick, official, marked with tabs where signatures were needed. Maya saw Vincent's name typed in clean black ink, saw Eleanor's name beneath it. Saw Dr. Hale's signature already waiting on one form like a silent permission slip. Dr. Hale moved to Eleanor's side, placing two fingers lightly against her wrist as if measuring her pulse, but Maya noticed his thumb press just a little too firmly, stopping her hand from tapping. "Mrs. Romano is tired," he said. "We should not overstimulate her." Maya's eyes lifted to his. "She is more alert than you think." The sentence slipped out before fear could catch it. Dr. Hale looked at her with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Compassion is admirable, Miss Bennet, but medical reality is not the same as hope." Around the table, Caleb's guests shifted uncomfortably, people who had come to witness a clean transfer of responsibility and instead found themselves sitting inside something they could not name. Vincent picked up the pen. The gold tip hovered above the first signature line. Eleanor tried to pull her wrist away from Dr. Hale, but he held it gently enough to look kind and firmly enough to keep her silent. Maya saw the older woman's eyes begin to shine, not with weakness, but with rage. The rage of a mother forced to watch strangers translate her life into paperwork. Vincent looked down at the page. Caleb lifted his glass. "To peace," he said softly. And that was when Eleanor stopped trying to tap. She reached for Maya with all the strength she had left and dragged one trembling finger across Maya's palm in 3 clear letters. "Run. Run." The word struck Maya first as fear, then as memory. Her brother Jordan had used that word once in therapy, not to mean escape, but to mean run the test again, because the first result was wrong. Maya looked from Eleanor's shaking hand to the wineglass near Vincent's plate, then to the blue-veined papers waiting beneath his pen. Suddenly the message sharpened. Eleanor was not telling her to flee. She was telling her what proof would survive this room. Run it. Test it. Make them look. Vincent's pen touched the page. Maya moved before doubt could stop her. She stepped around the wheelchair and placed her hand flat over the signature line. The gold pen froze against her knuckles. Every chair at the table went still. Caleb's face hardened for the space of one breath, then softened into public concern. "Miss Bennet," he said carefully, "you are making a very serious mistake." Maya did not move her hand. She could feel Vincent's eyes on her, colder now, more dangerous than the winter wind pressing against the tall windows. Dr. Hale released Eleanor's wrist and stood. "This is emotional instability," he said. "She has formed an unhealthy attachment to Mrs. Romano." Vincent's voice dropped low. "Take your hand off the paper." Maya's heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat, but she kept her palm on the page. "Not until you run a test, sir." Caleb let out a quiet laugh. "A test on what? The documents? The candles? The entire dinner?" On the wine, Maya said. The silence after that was different. Not shocked yet. Not convinced. Just empty, as if the whole room had stopped breathing to decide whether she was foolish or brave. Vincent looked at his glass. Caleb looked at Vincent looking at it. Dr. Hale spoke quickly. That is absurd. Mr. Romano, she is frightened and misreading involuntary gestures. Your mother cannot communicate complex thoughts. Maya turned toward Eleanor. Mrs. Romano, if you want the glass tested, blink once. Eleanor's eyes closed and opened once, clear and deliberate. Dr. Hale shook his head. Coincidence. Maya nodded, almost calmly. Then ask her something I could not know. Vincent's gaze sharpened. Caleb's hand tightened around his glass. For the first time all evening, the power in the room shifted away from money, titles, and polished voices. It moved toward the woman in the wheelchair and the caretaker everyone had tried to dismiss. Vincent stepped closer to his mother. His face was unreadable, but his voice changed when he spoke to her. Ma, he said softly, when I was 9, I broke something in the old house and begged you not to tell Dad. What was it? Eleanor's fingers trembled on the armrest. Maya knelt beside her, watching the taps, counting the pauses, reading the tiny strokes against the wood. One letter at a time, the answer appeared. V-A-S-E. Maya looked up. The blue vase in the front hall, she said. You told him the cat did it. Vincent went. Completely still. Caleb stopped smiling. Dr. Hale said nothing. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time that night, they were not helpless tears. They were the tears of a woman finally being heard. Vincent slowly picked up the wineglass, but he did not drink. He handed it to the nearest guard without looking away from Maya. Get it tested, he said. Now. The guard took the glass as if it weighed more than crystal, and for the first time all evening, Vincent Romano did not look like a man surrounded by loyal family. He looked like a son standing in the middle of a room he suddenly did not recognize. Caleb set his own glass down slowly. Vincent, he said, his voice calm but thinner now, this is unnecessary. You are letting a frightened employee turn a private family matter into a spectacle. Vincent did not answer him. His eyes stayed on Eleanor, who sat trembling beneath the pale blue shawl, tears resting on her cheeks but her chin lifted with the old Roman pride everyone had tried to bury under medical charts. Maya remained beside her, one hand near the armrest, waiting for the next tap, the next blink, the next piece of truth. Dr. Hale tried to recover control. A field test at the dining table will prove nothing, he said. Wine can contain many compounds that look unusual without being dangerous. We should let professionals handle this properly. Vincent finally turned toward him. Then call a professional who does not work for you. The words landed softly, but Dr. Hale's face lost color. Caleb gave a short laugh. Cousin, listen to yourself. Marcus has cared for your mother for almost a year. He has done everything you asked. Everything I asked, Vincent repeated, looking at the papers. Or everything you needed. No one moved. Outside the windows, rain had begun to touch the glass in thin silver lines. The guard returned with a small testing kit from the security office, the kind used for checking drinks during public events. It was not perfect, Maya knew that, but it was enough to open the door. Vincent placed the kit on the table himself. He did not ask Caleb. He did not ask Dr. Hale. He looked at Maya. Tell me what my mother wants tested. First. Maya turned to Eleanor. The older woman's fingers tapped twice, then paused, then pointed with painful effort toward Vincent's glass. Maya swallowed. The wine first, she said. Vincent dipped the strip. The room watched the pale paper touch the red liquid and come back stained. At first, nothing happened. Caleb exhaled with a smile that almost returned. Then the color shifted. Not dramatically, not like a movie. Just a slow darkening at the edge of the strip, subtle enough that a careless person might have missed it. But no one in that room was careless now. Vincent read the guide on the packet. His jaw tightened. Dr. Hale stepped forward. That could be a false result. It means there is a sedative marker, Maya said before she could stop herself. My brother's care facility uses screening strips like that when patients have unexplained reactions. Dr. Hale turned on her. You are not qualified to interpret that. Maybe not, Maya said, her voice shaking but clear. But your chart said Mrs. Romano was refusing therapy because she was declining. What if she was sedated every time she tried to communicate? Eleanor blinked once. Yes. Vincent's hand closed around the edge of the table. Slowly, he looked at the white bottle near Eleanor's place. Test her medicine too, he said. Dr. Hale opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Caleb stared at the rain-dark window, and in its reflection, Maya saw his face without the smile. For the first time, he looked afraid. Vincent did not touch the white bottle at first. He only stared at it, and in that stare the room seemed to lose its expensive warmth. The candles still burned. The rain still tapped softly against the tall windows. Silver still shone beside untouched plates. But all the beauty in the dining room had become decoration around a terrible possibility. Maya watched Vincent reach for the bottle with slow, careful fingers, as if the smallest movement might break whatever remained of his trust. Dr. Hale stepped forward. Mr. Romano, I strongly advise against this. Medication requires context. Dosage, timing, patient history, all of it matters. Vincent looked at him. Then context should not frighten you. Dr. Hale closed his mouth. Caleb finally turned away from the window, smoothing the front of his jacket with both hands. This has gone too far, he said. A caretaker with a phone and a few guesses cannot rewrite months of medical care. Maya felt the words land exactly where he wanted them to land, on her uniform, her job title, her place in the house. She was supposed to shrink beneath them. Instead, she reached down, removed one shoe, and pulled the folded note from beneath the lining. The room watched in stunned silence as she placed it beside the medicine bottle. I wrote these down before tonight, she said. Dates, times, changes in medication, and what Mrs. Romano communicated after each one. Caleb's eyes flicked to the paper. Dr. Hale's face tightened. Vincent unfolded the note. His gaze moved over Maya's careful handwriting. Blue bottle. 4 taps. Caleb. White bottle. Same smell. Less alert after dose. Tries to speak before 4 o'clock visits. Sleeps after Dr. Hale leaves. Vincent read every line without breathing. Maya then took out her phone, hands trembling now, and opened the photographs she had hidden for 2 days. Medication labels. Chart changes. A dosage crossed out and rewritten. A bottle that appeared one morning and disappeared the next. She placed the phone on the table and slid it toward Vincent. I did not know who to trust, she said softly. So I kept proof. Caleb laughed once, but it sounded dry and unfamiliar. Proof of what? That you do not understand medicine? That my aunt moves her fingers and you turn it into a fairy tale? Eleanor's hand hit the armrest once, sharp and clear. The sound cut through him. Everyone looked at her. Maya leaned in. Eleanor's fingers began to move, slowly, painfully, but with purpose. Maya read the taps, the pauses, the small strokes against the polished wood. C-A-L-E-B, Caleb. Then another word. P-P-E-R, paper. Vincent looked at the folder. His eyes narrowed. Maya continued, her voice barely above a whisper but strong enough to fill the room. She is saying Caleb brought the papers before. Not tonight. Before. He wanted her thumbprint. Dr. Hale said she was unable to consent. Then he changed. Her medication. Caleb's pleasant mask broke in pieces too small for anyone to pretend they had not seen it. Vincent opened the folder and turned the pages with controlled hands. Near the back, beneath legal language designed to look ordinary, he found a page authorizing Caleb to manage Eleanor's assets, medical choices, and certain family holdings if Vincent signed as witness. Vincent looked at his mother. Eleanor blinked once, then tapped the armrest again. No. Not a weak no. Not a confused no. A no that had waited 11 months to be heard. Vincent lowered the papers onto the table. His voice came out quiet, almost gentle. Bring me every file Dr. Hale has signed. Bring me the house medication logs. And no one leaves this room until my mother finishes speaking. No one argued with Vincent after that. Not because he raised his voice, but because he did not have to. The quiet in him had changed shape. It was no longer grief, no longer confusion, no longer the tired patience of a son trusting experts to explain his mother back to him. It was judgment. 2 guards moved to the doors and stood there without touching anyone. Mrs. Delaney hurried from the room with trembling hands and returned minutes later carrying a leather medical binder, a stack of medication logs, and a small locked box from Dr. Hale's office. Dr. Hale objected only once. Those files are confidential, he said, but the sentence died when Vincent looked at him. My mother is sitting 3 feet away, Vincent said. Her life is not confidential from her. Maya stayed beside Eleanor, close enough to read every breath, every blink, every exhausted movement of her hand. The older woman was weakening, but not fading. There was a difference. Her body was tired. Her will was standing. Vincent opened the binder and began turning pages. At first, the records looked clean. Too clean. Dates aligned. Doses matched. Doctor signatures appeared in tidy blue ink. Caleb watched from the far side of the table, one hand resting on the back of a chair, his face carefully composed. Then Maya saw Eleanor's finger move. A slow tap. A pause. 2 taps. Maya followed her gaze to the bottom corner of one page. There. Beneath a printed medication change, was a small notation written in a different pen. Night dose increased pending family authorization. Vincent read it twice. Family authorization, he said. His voice was soft enough to make the room lean in. Caleb, did you authorize this? Caleb's smile returned, but it was thin now, almost transparent. We discussed options. Marcus explained that mother was agitated. Eleanor struck the armrest once. No. Maya leaned closer as the older woman began spelling with painful precision. N-O-T-G-I-T-T-D. Not agitated. Then another word. A-W-K-E, awake. Maya looked at Vincent. She says she was awake. She heard them outside her room. Caleb swallowed. Dr. Hale reached for his water but did not drink. Eleanor continued, letter by letter, using what strength remained. P-P-E-R-S, papers. T-H-U-M-B, thumb. M-E-D-S, meds. The meaning settled slowly, then all at once. Maya translated with a voice that shook only at the edges. She says they brought papers for her thumbprint, and when she refused, the medication changed. The room went completely still. Vincent closed his eyes for 1 second, and when he opened them, the sun was gone from his face and the leader had returned. He picked up the document folder, removed the transfer forms, and tore them once down the middle. Not with rage. With certainty. The sound was small, but Caleb flinched as if the whole house had spoken. Dr. Hale sat down heavily. Vincent turned to the guards. Call my attorney. Call an independent physician. Preserve every camera file from this week. Then he looked at Caleb, and his voice became colder than the rain sliding down the windows. You came into my house and mistook my mother's silence for permission. Eleanor's hand reached for Maya again, but this time she did not trace a warning. She simply held on. Vincent knelt beside the wheelchair, lower than everyone else in the room, and placed his forehead against his mother's hand. I am sorry, Ma, he whispered. Eleanor blinked once. Yes. Maya translated softly, though every person there already understood. She forgives you. By dawn, the Romano mansion looked almost peaceful again, but nothing inside it was the same. The rain had stopped before sunrise, leaving the windows streaked silver and the garden washed clean beneath a pale Chicago sky. The long dining room had been cleared, the candles blown out, the untouched plates removed, but the silence from that night still lived in the walls. Caleb was gone from the house, not dragged away, not made into a spectacle, only escorted out under Vincent's cold instruction while attorneys and independent doctors began asking questions that polished smiles could no longer answer. Dr. Hale's office was sealed, his files collected, his confident voice reduced to careful statements over the phone. For the first time in 11 months, Eleanor Romano's room was not treated like a waiting room for loss. It became the center of the house. A new physician arrived before 8 o'clock, a woman from Northwestern with kind eyes and no connection to the family. She examined Eleanor with patience, listened when Maya explained the tapping system, and did something no specialist had done in months. She asked Eleanor for permission before touching her wrist. Eleanor blinked once. Yes. Vincent saw it, and the look on his face almost broke Maya's heart. Not because it was weak, but because it was honest. He stood at the foot of the bed with his jacket removed, sleeves rolled to his forearms, a powerful man suddenly learning that money had built walls where listening should have been. Maya sat beside Eleanor with a notebook open on her lap, translating slowly while the morning light touched the older woman's silver hair. Pain. Tired. Water. Sun. Vincent stepped closer when Maya said that last word. Eleanor's fingers moved across the blanket, trembling but determined. S.T.Y. Maya looked up. She wants you to stay. Vincent lowered himself into the chair beside the bed. I am not leaving, Ma, he said. Eleanor's eyes softened. Hours passed. Staff moved more quietly now, not with fear, but with shame. Mrs. Delaney came to the doorway and apologized in a voice so small it barely reached the room. Eleanor blinked once. Yes. Forgiveness, Maya realized, did not erase what had happened. It only proved Eleanor still owned the right to decide what kind of woman she would be after it. Near noon, Vincent found Maya in the hallway outside the bedroom, standing alone with the empty tea tray in her hands. For the first time since she had taken the job, he did not speak to her like staff. He spoke to her like someone who had stood between his family and ruin with nothing but courage and attention. Miss Bennet, he said, then stopped, as if even her last name was not enough. Maya. She turned. Yes, sir. He looked toward his mother's room, then back at her. How long was she trying to tell us? Maya held the tray tighter. Long enough for everyone to decide she had nothing left to say. The words landed between them without cruelty, but without softness either. Vincent accepted them because they were true. His eyes lowered for a moment, then rose again. You gave my mother her voice back. Maya shook her head gently. No, sir. She still had it. I only listened. Behind them, Eleanor tapped once against the bed rail. Both of them turned. The old woman's eyes were on Maya, steady and bright. One tap. Wait. Then slowly, carefully, she lifted her fingers and shaped the smallest thank you against the blanket. Vincent saw it this time. He did not miss it. And in that quiet room, beneath the clean morning light, the most powerful person in the house was not the man with the guards, the lawyers, or the empire. It was the woman everyone had ignored, finally heard by the caretaker they had underestimated. And that day, the world inside the Romano mansion remembered what dignity sounds like when someone finally listens.